The Knights of the Golden Circle, KGC, were one of the most enigmatic and controversial secret societies in 19th-century American history. Founded in 1854, the organization's ultimate goal was to create a vast pro-slavery empire that would encompass the southern United States, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. An empire where the institution of slavery would not only be preserved, but expanded. During the turbulent period leading up to the American Civil War, the KGC became infamous for its influence on Southern secessionist sentiment, its involvement in espionage and sabotage against the Union, and its clandestine political ambitions. The society's name itself reflected its aspirations, symbolizing a golden future for the Southern slave-holding economy and a circle of dominion that stretched beyond the U.S. borders into Latin America. The Knights of the Golden Circle were founded by George W. L. Bickley, a doctor, journalist, and adventurer from Ohio. Though Bickley claimed Southern origins and sympathies, he was more of an itinerant figure, roaming through various states and engaging in different business ventures. His primary ideological motivation for founding the KGC was to protect and expand the institution of slavery, which was perceived by its defenders as essential to the Southern economy and way of life. Bickley's vision of a new Southern empire, modeled in part on the Roman Empire, was as much about geopolitical power as it was about safeguarding slavery. The society's ideological roots were intertwined with the concept of manifest destiny, the belief that Americans were divinely ordained to expand their territory across the continent. However, while manifest destiny in the northern states often emphasized industrial progress and free labor, the KGC's version was heavily focused on extending slavery. Bickley and his followers believed that the Southern economy, based on slave labor, was superior, and that its expansion was both a moral imperative and an economic necessity. The ultimate dream of the KGC was the creation of a golden circle, a 2,400-mile-wide ring of slaveholding territories with Havana, Cuba, at its center. This empire would include not only the American South, but also parts of Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, forming a unified political and economic bloc underpinned by the institution of slavery. The KGC operated as a secret society with a formal, hierarchical structure. At its core were local chapters known as castles, which were the basic units of the organization. Like many secret societies of the 19th century, the KGC had a complex initiation process that involved oaths of secrecy, coded communication, and secret rituals. Members, or knights, were expected to be fiercely loyal to the organization and its cause, which was reflected in their military-style ranks and codes of conduct. The society's recruitment efforts were initially focused on Southern planters, businessmen, politicians, and Confederate sympathizers. However, as the group's ambitions grew, it began to recruit across a wider geographic and social spectrum. Knights were typically drawn from the elite class, but the KGC also targeted soldiers and other individuals who could contribute to its paramilitary operations. The group was said to have thousands of members at its peak, with castles located not only in the southern states, but also in northern border states, where Confederate sympathies lingered. This allowed the KGC to maintain a covert presence behind enemy lines during the Civil War, where they engaged in espionage and sabotage. The Knights adhered to a strict code of secrecy, with heavy penalties for those who divulged their plans. Members communicated through a series of secret codes and symbols, ensuring that the organization could operate in the shadows. In fact, much of what is known about the KGC comes from government investigations, leaks from disillusioned members, and post-war publications that aimed to demystify the organization. The society's ultimate ambition, the creation of a Southern slave empire, was detailed in a comprehensive plan that envisioned the annexation of territories beyond the United States. The KGC believed that Mexico was particularly vulnerable due to the internal instability of the Mexican government following years of civil war and foreign intervention. The society viewed Mexico as an ideal candidate for invasion and subjugation, as its vast territory and agricultural potential would make it a perfect addition to the southern slave economy. Bickley and the KGC launched several campaigns to rally support for military expeditions into Mexico. In the late 1850s, Bickley himself traveled across the southern states, giving speeches and organizing volunteers for what he hoped would be an eventual invasion. These efforts culminated in 1859, when the KGC tried to assemble an army to invade northern Mexico. When the American Civil War broke out in 1861, the KGC's focus shifted dramatically from external expansion to supporting the Confederate cause. The society became heavily involved in efforts to recruit soldiers for the Confederate Army, particularly in the border states. The KGC is believed to have been particularly active in Kentucky, Missouri, and Indiana, where Confederate sympathizers were more numerous than in other parts of the Union. In these regions, the KGC worked covertly to undermine Unionist support and bolster Confederate morale. In some cases, KGC members engaged in acts of espionage and sabotage, disrupting Union military operations and aiding Confederate forces. There are numerous reports of the Knights aiding in the escape of Confederate prisoners, organizing guerrilla raids, and even attempting to assassinate Union officials. The KGC also coordinated with Confederate generals in efforts to destabilize Union supply lines, especially during key campaigns like Morgan's raid into the northern states. The U.S. government became increasingly aware of the KGC's activities during the war. In response, Union officials launched investigations into the organization and its members, and several prominent Knights were arrested. However, due to the secretive nature of the group and the decentralized structure of its operations, many KGC activities went undetected or unpunished. Despite its efforts, the KGC failed to make a significant impact on the outcome of the war, and the fall of the Confederacy in 1865 marked the beginning of the society's decline. After the Civil War, the Knights of the Golden Circle largely faded from public view. The abolition of slavery, secured by the 13th Amendment, rendered much of the group's ideology and objectives obsolete. Some former members of the KGC joined the nascent Ku Klux Klan, which had similar pro-Southern white supremacist goals during Reconstruction. However, the KGC itself never regained the influence or notoriety it had during the pre-war and wartime years. Despite its decline, the legacy of the Knights of the Golden Circle has persisted in American folklore, particularly through stories of hidden Confederate gold and treasure. Some legends suggest that the KGC, anticipating the defeat of the Confederacy, buried large sums of gold, silver, and other valuables to finance a future insurrection or attempt to revive Southern dominance. Treasure hunters have searched for this supposed KGC treasure for over a century, but no substantial evidence has ever been found. These tales have fueled conspiracy theories, and the KGC has become a popular subject in speculative historical fiction and treasure hunting lore. One of the more persistent conspiracy theories involving the KGC centers around the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Some historians and researchers have speculated that John Wilkes Booth, Lincoln's assassin, was connected to the KGC due to his Confederate sympathies and links to secretive Southern networks. There is some circumstantial evidence to suggest that Booth may have been influenced by KGC ideology, especially given his strong opposition to the Union and abolition. However, concrete proof of Booth's membership in the KGC has never been uncovered, and the theory remains speculative. After the Civil War, the KGC's secretive nature, coupled with its association with the Confederacy, made it a fertile subject for conspiracy theories. Some have speculated that the KGC continued to operate underground long after the war, with the goal of overthrowing the federal government and re-establishing a pro-slavery regime. However, these claims lack credible evidence and are generally regarded as historical fringe theories. The Knights of the Golden Circle occupy a unique and somewhat obscure place in the history of the United States. While their ambitions for a Southern empire never materialized, they played a significant role in shaping the pro-slavery secessionist movement that led to the Civil War. Their activities during the war, particularly their involvement in guerrilla operations and sabotage, underscored the depth of Southern resistance to Union control. Although the KGC ultimately failed in its goals, the organization's influence on Confederate thought and its role in stirring anti-Union sentiment remain important aspects of Civil War history. In the broader context, the KGC represents one of the more extreme manifestations of Southern nationalism and pro-slavery ideology, reflecting the lengths to which some were willing to go to preserve and expand the institution of slavery. In the post-war years, the KGC's fading influence gave way to myth and legend, and the group has since been romanticized in treasure hunting. Yet the Knights of the Golden Circle stand as a reminder of the dark undercurrents of 19th-century American politics, where secret societies and grand conspiracies sought to reshape the nation's future.